It feels like it was stopped a little bit dead in its tracks, but like you say, he's got so much going on. That's kind of the way it is for a lot of these North American players who play their hearts out for us as we dive on into the action. Going to start on the bottom left-hand side with our red Zerg player, Antis.
Going to be representing a new team, Apprentice Esports. But over here in the top right-hand side of the map, we do have our blue Terran player. He is Vindicta, representing Team Alpha X. Really happy to see Apprentice Esports actually come up. They are a newer team. I think that Penguin is involved. Sugar SC2 is like one of the long-standing folks in the North American scene, and they picked up a bunch of NA players. Just, you know, it's for those who don't know, it's actually related to the NA Apprentice, which is another tournament and everything run by Sugar. So lots of NA support coming out from them.
Yeah, it's really cool. It's cool to see Penguin get to make a team as well. You know, I actually think low-key Penguin's one of like the coolest people when it comes to like scouting out StarCraft talent. Because he scouted out, you know, Stardust, right? Everyone knows Stardust, right? He got picked up by Mindsanity and he ended up winning DreamHack straight after, right? You know, sort of thing. But, like, I think a lot of people forget that Raynor was in Mindsanity for a long time, and it was Penguin that really rallied about Raynor for a long time and, like, put a lot of support into Raynor. And I really felt like that was a, kind of something in the making there. I always thought that was pretty cool.
Yeah, absolutely. Penguin's definitely been very involved and on the ground level of a lot of that stuff, but just to talk about this game, we did have a pretty quick pull come out over here from Antis. It's going to be sending those lings across the map after taking that hatchery. The SCV scout is... it's going to kind of have some idea of this, even if it doesn't see the lings, just because it's going to see the timing of the hatchery. But what is going to be the reaction over here from Vindicta?
Yep, he's just going to check and we'll leave the Reaper at home. That's pretty much all you need to do, right? Leave the Reaper at home. Some people will send the Reaper out to try and just grab the lings early, just to try and start getting damage on them already, so that's sometimes a possibility. So that's kind of cool. It's just going to be seen now. I mean, denying the SCV in the end. So yeah, just Reaper's just going to be there. The ling's going to back it up, and that will be all good for the moment.
Yeah. So to talk a little bit about the stylistic play styles of both of these players is, and I kind of mentioned this before, Vindicta, I think he can have like a strong mid game and all that stuff. And similarly, I think that Antis can also have like a pretty okay late game and everything. But as the game goes on, I do think just in terms of like territory where both these players I usually see are stronger is Vindicta I usually see being the stronger late game player. And Antis I usually think of as being the stronger early or mid game player. So even though normally I think Terran players are the ones that are kind of setting the pace of TVZ and everything, I am curious and I'm going to keep my eye out on Antis' side of the map to see if he's planning to do anything a little bit more aggressive early on.
Absolutely. I actually really liked watching Antis the last few days when he's been playing. I feel like while he didn't pick up a lot of series, like I say, some of his map wins were really cool, and even some of his map losses were really cool. Really felt like there was a lot of potential. So it's been pretty awesome to kind of watch that develop, because, you know, a player I've heard of before has definitely been somewhat kind of keeping track of roughly, but to actually see him play, you know, a few games back to back, it's been really neat. It's definitely been cool to see how they've progressed over time.
Yeah, always fun to see the development of players and everything. And we do have a Raven opening coming out over here from Vindicta, and well, I guess we'll wait and see how things actually end up shaping up. But the Raven openings can be used, I feel like, usually one of two ways. One, it's like you actually pair the Raven with the Hellions and you clean up creep and everything, which is, I think, what most people think of. And the second is you have the more aggressive Terran players who are like, I will push with the Hellions at the front, and I'll use the Raven for auto turret harassment in the back lines. I'm really curious which one Vindicta is going to opt for.
Yeah, it's definitely one of these builds we've seen a little bit on 2000 Atmospheres a lot, where this Raven just comes out with like that added kind of force of Hellions. You usually go to 10 instead of just cutting at 8. It's something that Clem used at one point against Raynor, and I think against Serral too. As this time it's just going to be these 7 Hellions, so obviously there's a little bit of a mix-up there as well at one point, so just 7 Hellions, and that means the Raven's probably just going to go and drop some of those auto turrets rather than, you know, actually trying to join up with the Hellions and clearing out creep, I would say.
Yeah, and it's definitely going to make sense, exactly as you were saying. Now, the Queens are already on the front lines over here for Antis, able to defend that creep tumor successfully. Will he have a good reaction to the auto turret? Auto turret actually going after the Queen rather than any of the drones, so it's going to go down after getting couple of Ling kills over here, but trying to just buy a little bit of attention away from Antis so he can find an opening over here, clean up a little bit of that creep spread, and it's exactly what he's going to be able to garner from it.
Yeah, again, a couple of creep tumors, always nice. Anything that you can kind of shut down creep-wise is always going to help. Sometimes it can feel very fruitless. It's like, oh, I'm pushing back all this creep and it's not disappearing, but it does make a big impact. Even if it still feels like it's there, it is further back than it would be anyway. I'm going to get a few more creep tumors over here, and that is the power of the Raven. Just a lot of the time people question if it's worth the Raven because it is a big investment. It's 200 gas early. You know, it takes away harassment potential of like a Liberator or Viking or something. And those are all questions you have to ask yourself. Is it worth it just to clean up the creep, which you could potentially clean up for the most part anyway when active tumors are spreading or, you know, just with the scan? So it's that's why you don't see the Raven every time, even though I know some people would absolutely love to see the Raven all the time.
I know. I feel like it's one of those things that we would see for ages on like the BattleNet forums. It's like, why don't Terrans just get a Raven instead of using all these scans and stuff? It's like, well, it's a little bit harder to put into practice. There are trade-offs and everything, but it's been great to see Terran players who can make it work. And I've got to say, so far, even though Antis hasn't been taking a ton of damage and stuff, like you were saying, the creep spread has definitely been pushed back quite a bit. So that definitely comes into play later on as eventually you finish up 1-1 or 2-2 and you start doing those pushouts as Terran. And it's like, if you don't have that much creep spread to go through before you get to hatcheries, you really can put on the pressure.
The one thing is, right, is like, where you've denied creep, you haven't had a single drone kill, and it feels like you've had like one minor drone pull, and that just really feels like the Zerg's being left to do as they want, and Antis has gotten up to 70+ workers. Going to 80 now, and that's my only criticism, is that maybe didn't need to go to 80. If you just on 70 made a round of lane Bane, cleaned this up, and then went to 80, I think this was going to be great, but now maybe just being a little bit too greedy as this attack is going to arrive. They're trying to jump on this right away, but man, there's already tanks sieged up, and now disengaging is costly because you've ran in, you've taken some shots, you ran out taking some shots, and that just feels like Vindicta's already going to get into a very good position down on this bottom side.
Oh yeah, that is an extremely abusive position. The Banelings are actually going to go in on top of the siege tanks rather than the Marines, but they do manage to get the cleanup on all those tanks. Marines do eat one or two of the shots from the Banelings, so Antis gets the full cleanup over there. Doesn't end up losing any drones or anything, and a lot of Banelings go down in exchange for not a whole lot of bio. Would you say it was worth it overall?
It wasn't terrible, right? I mean, you get rid of the tanks, that's nice. It slows down some of the future pushes, especially when you see that there's still tank production ongoing. I think it was all right. I mean, you look at resources lost, and it's like 500 difference, when it could very easily have been 1,000+ if this had been a very bad fight for you. So getting the tanks is nice. I mean, right now, I would like to see just making sure you're kind of fighting at the right points. These Hellbats are doing good over here. Just a couple Hellbats being very annoying and taking kind of a lot of attention away as well, especially. So yeah, you got to deal with that. That one tank is causing so many problems. If Antis just split the Banes and rolled in, this would be fine, but doesn't seem to have the Ling support needed. Now losing drones on the left side. Feels like Vindicta is pulling Antis apart a bit. Oh my god, even more drones.
Oh, that's going to be a bit painful. One Hellbat also remains, and one Hellbat will actually take decent trades versus drones being pulled against it. Ay. This is, I mean, this little force on the left-hand side has caused so many complications. Finally, Antis has had enough of it. He's just going to run his Banelings off of Creek. Comes in with a surround from the back. That is going to be nice and forces the lift up so he can finally clean up the tank. But finally,
it's got 20 kills.
Oh, no. Wardy, I feel like that just the Hellions from the early game that turned into Hellbats could single-handedly have just garnered Vindicta enough of an advantage in this game.
What they did over there was amazing, but they also pulled, like, they also kept Antis distracted, so a lot of his anti-counterattacks as well. It just kept Antis busy, so he wasn't fully committed to being able to clean up the right side either. So those Hellions really just did phenomenal damage, and now these Lings haven't been pulled away soon enough, and Vindicta is just playing a much cleaner game. Antis is really just falling apart to all of this multi-pronged pressure and definitely having some troubles now.
Yeah, now even going to be losing a few more of those Lings as the force there from Vindicta even pulls back and then is going to head back across the map, because guess what? If both players are expanding toward the top left, well then it is not very far away for Vindicta to put on that little pressure yet again on that hatchery. There's no way that's going to be able to get up successfully anymore. So, okay, barely, but it does manage to survive for now as he forces the Banelings off of Creep, is able to split pretty well against them, and the Lings cannot contend with them by themselves. There's 13 Banelings out on the map, but none of them are, it seems like, are ready to help defend over here.
Yeah, I mean, it's even that trade wasn't great, right? The Lings running into Marines that are beautifully split against the Banelings. It's just rougher all around the edges at the moment. It's 2-2 against 1-1 for a little while as well, so the Terran's looking to take advantage of that as we continue to fight here and there. And yeah, Vindicta's doing a great job of just controlling units on either side of the map and just always making sure there's a dual threat. It's never just one thing that Antis has to deal with, it's two things. And when you've lost momentum early, it's obviously easy for the Terran to then keep this up, but it's so much harder for the Zerg to just get back on track with this. There's not even Banelings on this right side fight, which is just a horrible trade. I mean, now 2-2 is finished just as every single Ling has died. And that means that these Marines have just traded absolutely crazy good. Talked about resources lost a bit earlier. It's now double resources lost for Antis over what Vindicta has seen go down.
Yeah, exactly what you were saying. It's been a really, really fantastic job here from Vindicta, just continuously throw out the armies on the left and right hand side. And this is, I think, what makes him also a lot better in like the late game, is he's able to control these large late game armies really well and find these advantages in the fights. He's continuing to find advantages even with the siege tanks, some of them unsieged. He's still going to have enough to power through that army. A nice counterattack attempt over here from Antis. He gets a couple of worker kills, and we'll even be able to find a couple of the reinforcements there. But he just still hasn't cleaned up this army over on the left-hand side, Wardy.
Some of these counterattacks really are the right idea. It's just there's just too much damage being done. These counterattacks would be fine if maybe some of them go out a little sooner, but also if he hasn't been in so much trouble throughout. Yes, you're up to lurkers now. That's great. Antis has been great with lurkers in this event. Definitely has looked very good with them. But again, you're playing from a lost position already, so it's just so tough. Even if you're really good at this sort of stage of the game, it's so tough to actually still make it go in your favor in the end.
Yeah, and as these medevacs continue to dance around the left-hand side, he continues to harass the new coming hatchery with that drop. We see that that big parade of Terran bio on the right-hand side is getting ready to hit that bottom center base yet again. And while Antis is still trying to get in position, the siege tank's already sieging in range of this hatchery right now. Antis has to go for it to protect his base, and he is starting to take a slightly decent trade over here so far, but as soon as he's off of creep, this gets a lot more complicated.
Yeah, but there's medevacs to heal for days as well. You will get pushed back here as Vindicta, but you've got a drop in the main base trading out a little bit.
Oh, no.
And again, it's 4 base against 4 base, right? So you're always trading better here pretty much as a Terran. And as you're always trading better, you're up against a Zerg that's just mining the same or less than you. I mean, obviously, that's just going to end up being in the Terran's favor in the end. I know that Vindicta's already got multiple more command centers built into, and now he's even got libs, which there's really no answer for because there just isn't enough power in those hydras to really push those back.
Yeah, Antis has been fighting as hard as he can to try and stay in this situation, but like you keep saying, it's just economically been so tough for Antis. He has not been able to get up that 5th base after repeated attempts. He's finally going to try and take a 5th base on the right-hand side, but unfortunately, this is where Vindicta's army is right now. He's got the Liberator Siege up, like you said, even getting it ready to queue up some missile turrets to be built over here. That's just going to help out a little bit more against things like those lurkers. And man, I'm really worried for Antis' ability to actually push back this army once again.
Yeah, absolutely. It's going to be tough to break into it, right? And I don't mind that Vindicta slows it down a little bit, but he's also still moving around the left side with a few units too. The one thing he just wants to make sure he keeps on denying is that 5th base, because if that doesn't go up, it really should be almost impossible for much else to happen. A little gap on the wall here as a single ghost does go down, so the Lings do find something, but again, 1 ghost in the grand scheme of this game is still far from what you need. You need to kind of find like a group of 10 ghosts or something, blow them up with the Banes, and yeah, maybe then we'd be on the right track.
Yeah, well, I guess the one nice thing is sniping off ghosts is especially nice versus a player like Vindicta, who really loves his ghosts and really loves his, or is very good with his ghost control especially. So I think that's something to look out for. He's looking for some potential EMPs with those ghosts on those Vipers. Doesn't quite find it. Lurker's going to be able to zone things out for now. But even the missile turret complicating things, not allowing Antis to actually go for those Viper pulls on the siege tank. And oh no, Wardy, we got nukes coming. This is actually like the nuclear missile is to Vindicta what the disruptor is to M. Canning. Like, this is what he lives on.
Yep. I mean, it's just, why not? You're in a super comfortable position. Got some nukes on the field. I don't really think you need it. I feel like you can probably just trade out here and be okay. But yeah, you know what? If you like playing nukes, you play with some nukes, because if nothing else, you can also see this as maybe starting to break down the kind of, mental kind of barriers of your opponent. Be like, hey, look, I'm gonna start nuking you everywhere just to make sure when we go in a game 2, you're scarred and concerned and know how much I was beating you by in this first game.
Yeah, absolutely. I'm sure Antis, he's even if he hasn't played competitive games against Vindicta as much, definitely knows there's something to look out for. But there it is, GG, as the first nuclear missile gets called down. We are going to see Vindicta take a 1-0 lead in this best of 3.
Didn't know the nuke was that powerful, Ravi. She stopped the nuke and the game just ends. Like, wow. I mean, I would have been building nukes a lot more quickly in my games if that happened. So, yeah, that is something. And just dominance from Vindicta start to finish. There was not a moment in this game where he let up. Even when he got counterattacked, it almost felt like it was a bad decision, right? Like, I liked the idea of them, but then the counterattacks just felt as though they just got swatted away. They didn't trade well. It just felt as though they almost put, Antis in even more trouble, which is not what they're meant to do. And it all just stems from him being behind. When that kind of multi-pronged aggression came out, he just did not cope with it well. I think the very first fight was okay. There was the second fight, and from there on out, and again, those Hellions Hellbats on the left side, just absolutely game-ending stuff.
Yeah, I think especially, like, it's something that we don't, I guess, talk about as much, because I think a lot of players, especially in like the European region and stuff, are very good with handling a lot of this, but counterattacks are really effective against Terran players that maybe have like rally pushes and things like that, where they're just continuously pulling forces to the front, or there's like a predictable line. Vindicta basically had this style during that game where he was grouping up his units and then doing a move out with like a large group of units. And he'd be like, move out to the left side, move out to the right side with another group, move out to the left side, move out to the right side. But it also means that basically between every single one of those move outs, all of your reinforcements are actually sitting there ready to defend against counterattacks. And I think it kind of makes just that style makes Vindicta a little bit more stalwart against some of those counterattack attempts. So I think Antis is going to have a hard time unless he throws more units into those counterattacks. But if you throw more units into the counterattacks, you're going to have a harder time defending against the actual attacks. So I don't even know. It's a tough call.
Well, I don't think we're going to even get a chance to see counterattacks in this game because we're going to Beckett. So if Antis doesn't have something super aggressive planned on Beckett, then I have no idea what is going on. How have we seen Beckett 3 times in one day of DreamHack Masters? That must be a season record at the very least.
Okay, Wardy, you handle the first player intro because I'm gonna go look at the map vetoes and see what happened here.
All right, bottom left-hand side, our red circle player is Antis. And I can tell you what happened. Antis just vetoed Oxide or something instead, and just would rather play Beckett and do something with it.
Oxide and Blackburn, yeah.
All right. Yeah, so he just vetoed the other 2 Terra maps. Just usually Beckett is like the straight up go-to. Mm-hmm. It's just if he wants to play weird, if he wants to play wacky, well, let Beckett in.
I guess so. Well, guys, we're going to be over here on the top right-hand side now. It's going to be on top of that blue Terran player sitting up 1-0. He is Alpha X's Vindicta. Add one more V to his name for every victory. Comes a Vindicta, because he's looking strong so far in this series. That last game really does not leave a lot of room for doubt on his abilities to win. And it wasn't like one of those games we've seen from Europe today where it's like, oh, look, Marine Lord took an early lead with like 6 worker kills super early on. And then everything off the back of that was just because he took an early lead. Like, Vindicta just played clean from start to finish there.
What I'm really excited or interested about here, though, is that surely Beckett's not going to be the same kind of game. Mm-hmm. So at least from Antis' point of view, you can say, well, you know what? The macro attempt sucked. But I've lined this map up with the intention to cheese or do something, surely. I mean, if you don't, you're asking for trouble. This is a Terra map. Rush distance is short. Attacks come quickly. You know, it's very good positionally for Terran as well. Lots of ledges and canyons that the Terran can shoot over, set up tanks on, chokes they can, like, there is just nothing good about this map for Zerg. The only good thing about this map is if you get to Lurkers, Lurkers can be good with all the chokes. But if you get to Lurkers, then the Terran's done something very, very wrong anyway, usually. So, well, let's just wait and see, because this has got to be something special from Antis, I imagine.
Yeah, I agree with you there. I do quickly want to actually note something, which is Neve versus Maples is happening on the B stream.
Don't tell me.
No. Maples has come up 1-0, and I can tell you exactly how. Maples got off a cannon rush position that he really should not have been able to get up against Neve. He got up the cannon rush position behind the main base on Lightshade. There's a 4 pylon wall up you can do there, and Maples just pulled it off perfectly, and Neve just was not prepared for it at all. So as soon as that cannon gets up, it's kind of over. So well done for Maples. I'm not sure how game 3 is going, but it's tied up 1-1 right now.
You know, all I can hear is the sound of all my meant to be hard prediction points burning away.
Maples just won, apparently. I don't know what happened in the game, because obviously the B stream for me is on a delay, but our production is telling us that Maples has just defeated Neve 2-1. That's actually
that really
nuts.
is the sound of my prediction points just wasting away.
Imagine Maples.
Hey, Neve might go out, man. Neve's genuinely like on the way to going out of this group, like, and not in the out that we usually talk about.
Yeah, it's scary though, because and it's also crazy because Maples. It's the first series he's won in this entire group. He has not been able to defeat anyone. The only player he's been able to beat is Neve. Like, think about how insane that is.
I think what's more insane is that Antis is just playing completely normal on Beckett, though. And that should say something, because obviously Maples beating Neve is pretty insane. It just seems like Antis just wanted to play this map because he likes it. I don't know. I don't know at all.
Yeah, I mean, I guess we'll wait and see if he has something else in store for us once like Lair finishes or something. But for now, he's just going to be getting his usual scout out. He's going to see he's up against Hellion Banshee this time. It's not going to be the Raven. I guess theoretically there could be like a fake out here with the Tech Lab researching Cloak, but we can see that it is not. It is in fact a Banshee coming on out. So we'll see how good the creep spread can get out with the Hellion harass, but. This is definitely one of the tricky maps, I feel like, sometimes to shut down the creep spread.
Yeah, well, it is kind of not easy to rotate left to right necessarily, like far left to far right. But it is fairly okay to kind of just sit your Hellions kind of where they are now, and then the creep will never really get in front of any of the bases because they can still kind of go in front of each of the bases easily. So, yeah, it's definitely an interesting kind of question as to... I mean, honestly, it's something I've never really considered for your Dragon, because the amount of times I've casted a game on Beckett at TVZ where the creep spread actually matters, it's probably happened less than 5 times, and this map has been in the map pool a good few seasons now.
No, I believe it, man. Well, the Banshee's going to find an interesting, awkward spot between the bases. Remember, Lair is not even done yet, so there's no Overseers around or anything. This Banshee's going to try and sit here, harass any units that come around. He's going to be able to spot out some of the Queens as the Hellions try and dive forward, but with Queens over here, not really going to be able to accomplish a whole lot more. Sporkroller gets burrowed, and the Banshee a little bit late to react there. Vindicta ends up losing that, so overall, I would say not the worst start for Antis.
Yeah, getting a Banshee is always nice, and, well... I mean, in theory, if he can get set up into his game and doesn't let a lot of the Terran pushes go off, then it's okay. But now these Hellions are coming through. The Lings will strike from the side. I mean, you're going to clean up these Hellions. Only 2 drones down. Losing the Hellions basically loses most of your map control. Yes, you still have the Banshee, but yeah, only having a few Hellions, definitely losing some control of this game. Only 2 drones going down. How many Lings went down? A reasonable number. Yeah, I think Antis is okay with how it started up. Yeah, loses a handful of those Lings and I think 1 or 2 Banelings there as well. But like you said, if there's not that many Hellions, that also means that even setting up your 3rd base can get a little bit more complicated. The Ling, of course, is going to be blocking over here until the Hellions come to clean it up. But you see a handful more Lings on the way. Antis is up to 69 workers, a nice number for him to start going into some units and trying to put a little bit of pressure on. Yep, a little bit of pressure going to be on the way out as I see a double drop down this right side from Vindicta. So that Ling, I don't believe glimpsed that. I think it was just out of reach, maybe. There's a few Lings up there, won't find much either. Yeah, I mean, I like that Antis is just taking a 5th hatchery as well, though. Just confident with the position, happy with where he seems to be for the moment. And oh wow, that tank shot though, man. I mean, Beckett Industries, literally, why would you let this? This is why I don't get, right? Like, why would you play a map when the Terran can do this on one of your more reasonable to take 4th bases?
Yeah, it's really, really tough to beat Terran players on Beckett. I feel like the only Terran player I ever see lose on Beckett is like Up a Tree Zelda, and let me tell you something, Vindicta is not Up a Tree Zelda.
I mean, this is just... I just don't get it. Like, where's the game plan from Antis that says, hey, I want to play on Beckett Industries, you know? Like, if he was maybe playing, like, super fast mutas or something, he did something with that, and then maybe you've got mutas to, like, snipe tanks out on a high ground and so on. You know, maybe if he had some sort of initial aggression plan. I mean, I think his plan is to literally just get to Lurkers and say, well, it's not a terrible map for Lurkers, but getting there is going to be difficult. And right now, I feel like he's already in the process of dying a little bit as cleans up on the left side, but this right side is just completely sacrificed.
I guess the bright side of this is what you mentioned before, where effectively Antis had a point in time where he was taking his macro hatchery and also taking a 4th and 5th at the same time. So he did double expand there. It's still not going to be an ideal spot, but if he can at least get away without taking too much more damage on the left-hand side or the right-hand side, it's going to be okay. But he's already taking more damage on the right as he pulls most of his units up to the top left to deal with this Marine tank push. The drop on the bottom right has already killed the Queen, it's killed the Extractor, it's killing drones. He's even going to be able to pick up and potentially head over to the main base and just continue to split up Antis. He's not even close to getting the Lurkers out yet.
I just don't know. Yeah, I just don't know what the plan was, man. I mean, I get it. Like, you go in here, and again, it's the same issue as last time in a way, right? You kind of can't really deal with the multi-pronged aggression. So it's kind of dying to the same stuff. But the problem is, again, I know we're harping on about the map, but the map makes this stuff easier to do for the Terran player. It gives them positions they can utilize way more easily than usual, and so it's just easier for the Terran to pull off, harder for you to defend. So if you already struggle to defend against this kind of stuff, you know, why are you then letting the map, which is good for it, kind of come on through into the map order? Well, I feel like we've definitely talked the map to death, so as Lings and Banes run forward on this left side, they will maybe get a cleanup. Some of these Marines are low. He's going to push it back, but Vindicta's about to hit 2-2, and he'll keep on trading with that 2-2 advantage, and that's probably going to look really good for him.
It absolutely will, and these 4 Marines continue to get more damage done. But once again, I mean, we keep talking about the map, but yeah, yet again, the Siege Tank is getting crazy amounts of damage from behind the cliff face. Even if the Zerglings are going to be able to clean that up, some of the Marines will be able to get out of there. He has another attack coming in on the top left-hand side. Lurker Den only halfway completed. Lurker Dens very much so remind me of like the Protoss Dark Shrine, where you're hoping, you're sitting and praying that it's going to be able to come up, but it takes such a long time to build.
And then the Lurkers themselves take a long time to build. Yeah. This is actually a funny fight because the Marines split onto creeps, so the Bahalians get that little bit of a boost toward the end at least to help them connect. So that is something, but the tanks are still here, a couple of them on the low ground, and there's Hydras that are being pushed away. Yeah, I mean, Marines continuing on the left-hand side, a little counter-attack or whatever this was being cleaned up too. As Vindicta takes the 4th base, Antis is still just taking so many losses out over on the left even. Supplies are still close. Can we potentially actually get Lurkers up and turn this around for your Dragon? Is it possible now that Antis has some time?
I mean, maybe. I think he's going to need to do more than just be able to get the Lurkers up, right? He needs to also be able to take like a halfway decent fight and stuff, because some of the concern also is going to be around things like 3-3 upgrades on the way there from Vindicta, as well as just the base count is not exactly super high for right now for Antis. He needs to make sure he does not lose any more bases. That is an absolute must. And the Ling counterattack on the right-hand side is also doing a good job delaying the 4th base.
Really, really good. A lot of SCV kills. This is the sort of thing that you do really need as Antis, and that's the sort of thing that might give you some hope in this game. Upgrades evened out for a little while here as well. I mean, if there was a moment, this is kind of it. And now being able to bring all of your units together at the same time to clean something up, Antis is kind of starting to stabilize just slightly. Needs to get some more army out, and specifically, obviously, really needs to just get in towards Lurkers now, I think. You know, take this little bit of freedom you've created for yourself, run by a bit maybe, but start looking at those Lurkers. You've got the drones for it. Get them mining. Get those Lurkers up, because without them, I feel like you're going to start running into some of the same issues that you had before.
Yeah, it seems like he's not going to be going that route right now, though, because he doesn't have a single Hydra out on the map, and he's still just flooding out Lings and Banelings right now. Maybe feeling like just continuing to counterattack and try and keep Vindicta at home is going to be the play, but it's also really tough because Beckett is a small map, so it doesn't take that long for Vindicta to just get across the map. Even if you try and go for one of these counterattacks, Vindicta will be at your front door in a very short period of time. Now, Vindicta is getting hit at that very small window where he hasn't quite hit his opponent yet, but his units are too far away to actually get home and help defend. And now these Lings and Banelings are wreaking havoc on the planetary fortress and the natural and the 3rd base. Could this be exactly what Antis needed?
Somehow, maybe. I mean, a lot of SCVs on the third starting to go down. That fourth does survive, by the way. The Planetary just needed a few more units on it to really make the difference, so that will survive. You lose a base on the bottom side, but you've just killed 32 SCVs. Vindicta is on the verge of being nigh on all in with the work count that remains. 4 bases, but basically no SCVs to utilize. Oh, but Antis has to give up a base, and Vindicta's like, I don't want to. Get me out of here. So that's kind of a crazy moment. He does turn a few Marines around, but just a few will not get it. He actually could have had this base, absolutely. But he wanted to turn around, retreat, and start playing a little bit of a safer game. And maybe that was a missed opportunity. Down 30 supply. Vindicta has the 3-3 upgrades, but plus 3 carapaces on the way from Antis. You know, what's miraculous for me is that Antis is suddenly making all of this happen still with kind of like the same set of units, right? Like, you know, he still never really got up to the point where he's able to use lurkers or anything. The first one now morphing. I mean, okay, that's cool, but we're also missing the lurker upgrades. It's not like lurkers are going to be amazing, but maybe just 1 or 2 to hold down some positions. Maybe all you need.
Yeah, I guess it's definitely it's gonna help at least. It is a little bit rough because I think lurkers usually do also want to like go up against Marines that don't have, you know, 7 medevacs or 9 medevacs on the map. That medevac count has just really never been hindered because I don't think the Hydra count has ever been that high for very long. So Vindicta might, with those 3-3 upgrades, be able to take some of the fights that you normally wouldn't see versus those lurkers, just because, like you said, the upgrades aren't quite there. But well, we're starting to hit a point now where Antis has been able to deflect the harassment for long enough that if this drop doesn't work out, I do feel like Antis is going to be able to get aggressive. And I don't just mean as a counterattack, I mean actually get aggressive.
Medevac just dies. The second medevac goes down. Beautiful denial of the drop. That is not what Vindicta needs. GG, and Antis wins it. You know what? I will 100% go back through that game and say I 100% agree with everything I said. So Antis was dead. He was falling apart. I still hate the map choice. He just found that little bit of momentum at the right time to keep him alive and to keep him going. And hey, sometimes that's all you need. And he really took that. Once he had that little bit of something, he really went with it. Still don't understand why you do a normal game on Beckett, but hey, it worked in the end somehow, some way.
You know, I will say, like, we were talking about this before, and just the counterattacks for Antis in game number 1 weren't working out. And I said either like that isn't, you have to stop doing that and instead just like crush the pushes even harder, or put more investment into the counterattacks. And he just, that's kind of what he did. He just threw a lot more units into his counterattack and was willing to give up bases, and it worked out beautifully, actually. He caused so much havoc. His Lings and Banelings, while I think that choice got a little bit questionable because he wasn't going into the lurkers and stuff, like just the fact that he was able to go for that force can split up between bases so effectively in a way that honestly lurkers couldn't. Like lurkers couldn't be just a part of that attack and be like, yes, I'm gonna send like 1 lurker to each base. I guess you can kind of do that, but really it's like, it's not quite the same effect as sending 20 Lings to each base to ravage mineralize and stuff. So really impressed with Antis' ability to, I feel like, adapt a little bit from the way he was doing those counterattacks in the first game.
And I can't believe we're going to game 3 for you, Dragon. I honestly really cannot. Like, there was nothing about game 1 or game 2 until about 5 minutes ago that said Antis would win a game, right? Like, yeah, there really wasn't, but he just pulls it out at the very end. Like you say, it was like a last-ditched effort, really. I even thought after the first bit of damage, you should take that as the chance to tech to lurkers, and he was like, no. I actually feel like Vindicta is unraveling a little bit here. And boom, he's just able to turn it around. I wonder if Vindicta can like mentally get back from that as well, right? Because now you're like, damn, Beckett was my map. I was in a great spot. And I lost. We'll see if he can. It's 1-1 in the bottom right. Our blue Terran is Vindicta.
And up in the top left-hand side of the map, the red Zerg player. He is Antis, representing Prentice Esports. I do quickly want to touch upon something not related to this series, but I did, during that game, somehow tab out and look at the VOD of Maples versus Neeb. So game 2, I mentioned that Maples was able to win with a cannon rush on Lightshade behind the mineral line with a 4-pylon wall. Game 3, Wardy, it was DT's depowering the Robo. It was a 1-base DT opening where I was on Oxide, where it's like one of those, I have a wall and you assume that I'm going to go for a natural, but you don't go for a natural because you're proxying a Dark Shrine. and then you just run the DTs in and hit the pylon power in the robo, and then the game's over.
So was it 2-1?
It was 2-1 Maples. Maples defeated Neeb there. Even though Maples is knocked out, it's still going to be a good win that he can, feel good about. But this put Neeb in an interesting spot in relation to these players, actually, just because Neeb is kind of gunning for that 4th or maybe 3rd place spot at best, but potentially 4th place spot. And that is exactly the spot that both of these players are also gunning for. So whoever wins this is probably going to have the best chance of being able to take that spot from Neeb.
It's actually kind of crazy because as soon as still gonna gotta play today against M Canning, Nina is playing this, so those guys don't matter today. But as soon as plays M Canning, as soon as could get up to 4 match wins today, and then Neeb still has to play Nina, which is obviously dangerous. Vindicta is looking to play Maple, so I feel like if Vindicta wins here, then Vindicta wins tomorrow. Like it's really, really possible that he can overtake Neeb. It's tough. Because of map score, Neeb has a couple maps advantage already, and that's with having just lost. It's really, really possible, man. That's actually crazy.
Yeah, and that's not even getting into throwing M Canning into the picture, who's also kind of sitting there just below Neeb.
Yeah.
It is a very, very scary and open group in a lot of ways. So interested to see how things play out. Again, this is going to be an important game for shaping that future. But for now, Vindicta going to be pretty happy with how his Reaper's been able to open up. Getting a drone kill is not something you usually get, especially the drone kill going to the 3rd is always a very, very nice feeling.
Yeah, that's definitely a bonus. Definitely makes your life like a whole bunch easier, actually. That's just going to slow things down a whole bunch on the Zerg side, and obviously doesn't cost you anything at all, really, apart from a little bit of micro. So, yeah, nice strong start so far from Vindicta.
It is also going to be this kind of 2-1-1 setup over here from Vindicta. Still no sign of the starport until just now, so we'll eventually be getting that up. But this is a big difference from the openings that he was going for before. We was consistently going for that 1-1-1 setup, getting out the Hellions, and either getting out a Raven or a Banshee. So I'm interested to see how Vindicta is going to be able to make use of this, because I think he was doing a good job of denying creep, and like that Hellion opening just in both games, even though when he lost, seemed to be working out pretty well. But definitely 2-1-1 has its own advantages.
Yeah, I actually really like this from Vindicta, because I really feel like with the way that the games have been going, a build like this absolutely starts to put you into the position where the games have looked really good for you, just a little faster, right? Where you've got pressure on the map, you've got options to maybe go a couple different places very quickly, a little bit later in the game. It just feels like you're going to start putting the pressure on against a Zerg who has absolutely struggled to deal with the pressure that you've applied thus far, right? So I like you get the real pressure going a little bit sooner. I like the approach. I like the mix-up. And let's see what happens. Is right now, 40 drones out of Antis, the 13 lings and 5 queens on the map. A lot of this depends on how you take the fight. You've got to take the fight with those queens and the lings at the same time, because without both of them, they really complement each other. And you need the queens to get rid of the medevacs, the lings can clean up the marines. So that's what we need to see here from our Zerg.
Yep, drop is heading out, and I think a couple of lings just swung by as the drop was heading out over there. And now, since, the drop just picked up all the units really that you make, you see that there's not a whole lot at the front lines. And as soon as you also start to realize, like, well, Hellions haven't really been poking me at all or anything. Like, really should have a good idea of not only that the fact that the attack is coming, but that you just need to, like you said, get those queens in position ASAP.
This first drop isn't even the scary part. What's going to be scary for Antis is if this drop survives with everything intact, and you then don't have a real follow-up for the next medevac of units, because a 3rd medevac's now finished. That's the medevac that's really going to put this marine count to a point where you can't really fight with Ling Queen, and the Baneling Nest is late. So I'm a little bit worried as the 3rd medevac makes its way to the top side of the map that Antis might be in for a really tough time in a few moments.
Baneling Nest is laid. There's only one creep tumor in front of that 3rd base from the angle that all these units are coming in from. If there is a scan over here to pick out that creep tumor, there is a scan, but just going to be focus firing down some of the queens. Doesn't quite get anything over there, and the creep tumor remains safe for now. So that is going to be a little victory there for Antis, as he also takes a 4th base behind this and is starting the morphing of those Banelings.
Yeah, I really like that he's just being able to hold, being able to get Banes up is big. Now we're going to see the Marines stimming in for those Banelings a little bit. I feel like Vindicta's almost been a little too respectful in a way, you know? I feel like he maybe could have pressed the issue a little bit more before now. You know, it feels like he's barely really even gotten in range to fight. And that's credit to Antis. He's staying kind of back and not letting Vindicta maybe get opportunities to step forwards and take a fight. This Widowman's going to be massive on the Zerglings. And there's everything clumped up together. That was very painful.
Yeah, definitely a juicy connection there on those the Widow Mine on those Lings. There are still a handful of those Banelings left over, though. I feel like Antis did a pretty good job of keeping those Banelings from just getting target fired down by the Marines and stuff. So while Vindicta is doing a good job with this harassment and everything, I think that Antis has survived past some of the scariest points in time for this. Does have to be a little bit careful with these Banelings now, since Baneling speed not finish up for another 15-20 seconds.
Yeah, absolutely needs that Baneling speed to come on through. Is just going to be seeing Marines still kind of sitting here. I mean, as soon as Bane speed shows up, it is going to help a whole bunch. I love that Vindicta's got the multi-prong already starting to roll out a little bit as well, by the way. That definitely feels like a good thing for him. He's going to drop in the main base now, too, I think, which would allow him to pull some units in that direction while he hits the left-hand side base. And now the fourth looks as though it's in some serious trouble. And yeah, the counterattack not doing much. Yet another insane Widow Mine. Wow, 21 kills. It was just dead center. Absolutely perfect. GG. Vindicta takes it 2-1.